The slasher genre, a versatile sect of horror film that damn near anything can become. We have slasher Winnie the Pooh, a body swap slasher with Freaky, and even a time travel slasher with Totally Killer. Speaking of Totally Killer, that's the topic of today's video. Wait, no, my bad. We're actually talking about the Netflix version called Time Cut. Ever heard of it? Well, it's a PG-13 Netflix original that came out October 30th of this year, 2024 for those watching late, and has raving reviews with 25% on Rotten Tomatoes, 5 out of 10 on IMDb, and 36% on Metacritic. When I tell you that this is one of the most disappointing slasher films I've ever seen, I'm not kidding, and I'm someone who loves horrible horror movies. I'm a huge fan of the Twisted Childhood universe and the early iconic slashers like Friday the 13th, but Time Cut is just boring bad. Now before I get into the spoilers, I just want to say I'm not bashing the actors or their performances. For what the script was, I believe they did really well. As for the story, I'll have a blast talking about my problems with it. Without further ado, let's begin. On April 18th, 2003, in the small town of Sweetly, an evil presence lurks over a high school barn party. The Sweetly slasher has murdered 3 teenagers and is on his way for a 4th, a girl named Summer Field. Yes, these names are almost as bad as the ones from Fear Street. This is a time travel slasher and we live in a town called Sweetly with a protagonist called Summer Field. Next down is the town of Sugar Cup run by Mayor Tweedledee. Anyways, the Sweetly slasher murders Summer and we get a time jump to present day 2024 where we meet our real protagonist, Lucy Field, the sister of Summer. The movie portrays Lucy's sad life, living in the shadow of her deceased sister so spectacularly I wondered why she hadn't moved away from home yet. I mean, her parents are depressed and don't want her to move away for college, and everyone in her school constantly talks about her sister instead of Lucy's own individual life, including her teachers. The murder happened 21 years ago, and this poor girl does not have a life outside of her dead sisters. On the anniversary of Summer's death, every year her family decorates her memorial at the barn where it happened. Lucy strays off and discovers a fucking time machine, and with some Disney Channel original movie effects, is sent back to 2003 before the murders ever happened. I'm serious, the whole vibe of this film feels like something from Disney Channel in the early 2000s, which is very weird considering the topic of the film. Now, not gonna lie, this is actually very interesting, and when I first watched, I was intrigued to see what would unfold. So now Lucy has traveled back in time and is trying to figure out how to get home. She gets chills as she runs into her sister, alive and well in school, and befriends a nerdy kid named Quinn. Quinn was about to be tossed into a river by his bullies. You know, typical 2000s teen movie hazing, when Lucy stepped in and saved him. Lucy convinces Quinn she is a time traveler by showing him her smartphone. Very effective tactic to convince someone, I must say. She tells Quinn that she knows something horrible is going to happen and has the power to stop it, but Quinn insists that she lets it happen to not mess with the time stream. Quinn then offers to help her get back to her time era, but after his shift at the mall, because why not? Lucy then gets invited to her own home by her sister to help her with schoolwork. It's very saddening as we see through Lucy's eyes how much happier her family was back before the tragedy. They're being lively and upbeat, which is something she never experienced. Lucy then feels the overwhelming urge to go to the mall since she knows that's where the Sweetly slasher makes his first kill. Lucy goes to the mall and we see our slasher absolutely decimate 2 of Summer's friends. He kills a dude with a broken CD and then rips off a woman's face by pressing it into an escalator. If this movie wanted to, it could have easily been rated R, but for some reason it's very censored and once again, Disney Channel-esque in tone, which I just don't understand considering that it's a fucking slasher flick on Netflix. Here's our first mishap though. Lucy being at the mall fucks up the timeline because she alerts a security guard and he ends up getting stabbed. So now Lucy is having new victims getting murdered that originally never happened. Also during the mall sequence, it seems like there are 2 slashers as the killer would appear in places after being left behind somewhere else. So in my head, I was even more intrigued because I'm thinking once this machine is fixed, Lucy will have to go back again to fix her mistakes, and now there's 2 killers, so I have to work out which characters they are. How wrong I was. So the movie has many instances of the killer appearing out of thin air, which would only be explained by an accomplice, similar to the Scream movies, but that's not true. There is only one Sweetly slasher, and apparently they can teleport. Also, Lucy never goes back to fix her fuck-ups, and now that poor security guard stays dead. Like, what the hell? He didn't deserve that. The film quickly falls apart as we progress, starting with the whole dilemma of the logic of time travel within this movie. So later, after these murders, Lucy is back in her childhood home and asks her future parents if they ever considered having another kid, and they flat out say no, and that one is enough, so Lucy is now left to decide her fate. If she saves her sister from the Sweetly Slasher, her parents won't make her out of pity and grief, thus she'll never exist. Or she could sit back and let her sister die as intended and be born in a depressed household where Summer's death overshadows her whole life. Lucy morbidly decides to save her sister and then in turn cease to exist because she doesn't want to go back to a miserable, sisterless existence. But that raises a question. The movie establishes that saving her sister would mean her parents would never give birth to her, but how would that work? Because if her parents never gave birth to Lucy, then she could never have gone back in time to save Summer, so Summer would have died regardless. It creates a time paradox. Classic time travel movie problems. This is why Marvel established multiple timelines to polish up that conundrum. But that's not even the worst part. This movie has a very small cast of characters. The main three are Lucy, Summer, and Quinn. There was Summer's high school boyfriend who bullied Quinn, but the movie tries to paint him as the obvious suspect as the slasher the whole time until the third act where they reveal he isn't. The only other characters that could be the Sweetly Slasher was Lucy's science teacher, who was in a couple of scenes earlier, or her own parents, which would have been a crazier twist than who was actually the killer. Okay everyone, strap in for the reveal. The killer was Quinn, but an older version of Quinn. Okay, so let's start from the top. Quinn was obsessed with dating Summer, but Summer is a closeted lesbian and rejects his love. Quinn is then thrown into the river by his bully and decides to kill his crush and her friends like a typical incel. But this did not happen in 2003. Quinn lived for years as an angry incel over his rejection and built a fucking time machine over 2 decades later just to go back in time to kill Summer and her friends. Wait, so Quinn is mad, goes back in time and kills Summer, creating Lucy, who is alive, and then discovers Quinn's time machine and goes back in time to save Summer, but old Quinn is the slasher who traveled back and runs into his younger self as well as Lucy and Summer, but since Lucy saved Quinn from being tossed into the river, Quinn never becomes the slasher, but all 4 of these characters are existing in the same point in time. Wouldn't that mean that Lucy was existing and growing up as Quinn was working on his time machine since he used the same one? But why would Quinn be building a machine if Summer was already dead? How could Summer be already dead if Quinn hadn't built the time machine? But Quinn wouldn't have built it because he never turned evil because of Lucy's kindness, but if he never turned evil, then he never built the time machine to go back and do anything evil, and oh my god, my brain hurts. The movie, through all this slop, even tries to make a new rule by showing young Quinn hold a knife to his own throat and saying if he kills himself, then his serial killer older version dies too. Bitch, that version of you shouldn't even exist right now because you never turned into him because of Lucy. The utter confusion only gets better once Lucy and evil Quinn go back to 2024 and Lucy kills him. Okay, so what the fuck should happen now as a result of these time travel shenanigans? You wouldn't even guess the ending. So Lucy still exists even after all of this and decides to go back again and live a brand new life in 2003 outside of her family so she can stay friends with Summer and Quinn. Huh? How can she travel back after any of this? Unless the movie is claiming to use Avengers Endgame logic of the multiverse, but the science behind the time travel is never thoroughly explored, and with the same logic of, if your younger self dies, so does your future counterpart, then both Lucy and evil Quinn should have been dusted out of existence once Lucy saved Quinn from being tossed into the fucking river. Or even earlier than that, but my brain is about to burst trying to piece these together, the logistics of this whole dilemma. Anyways, at the end of the day, I'm left with a cold serving of a child's version of Scream, with a more fucked up timeline than Terminator and X-Men. All I have to say about Time Cut is that with more thought behind it and a more mature rating, it probably would have been a good copycat of Totally Killer. Let me know your guys' thoughts on Time Cut in the comments below, and don't forget to like the video and consider subscribing to stay up to date on future videos. Until the next mangled timelines, I hope you all have a great day.